understands that the number one rule is to forget about himself and service that person. If I'm in the real estate business, then if I truly want to continue business, I'm going to attempt to provide that client with the best home that fulfills that client's needs. And so, first of all, we have to deal with these policies about business. Business is about serving people. You know, I remember this story. The wise man, a young lad, he was talking to the master, and he asked him. He said, "Master, what's greatness?" And he thought the master was going to say a Mercedes Benz or a Mac. And he said, "No." He said, "The greatness is that for those that serve." And so, if you really want to be a true businessman, not know I'm gonna take advantage of you, businessman, and no morals and bad businessman. But if you want to be a businessman that's true to what business is about, it's about serving. Well, what is it about in the church? It's about serving. That's why I see some problems with what's going on. Why some of the churches are suffering economically. They don't understand. If you really think about serving, then you're in a perfect position to fulfill needs of the people inside the congregation. And because you don't see it, somebody on the outside do, but they might not do it with the integrity that you have inside the church. Because somewhere down the line, somebody told us that that's not God's work. Well, guess what? People in church got to have homes. They need food. They need milk. They need electricity. They need cars. Why can't we provide that? Because we have to, again, I think somewhere in scripture they say it's a renewing of the mind. And so the renewing that we have here is that we're going to do business principle based. Well, Pastor, let me tell you this. Man can build a car, a house, a microwave. He can't create no principle. That's God's stuff. So the top businessmen I've experienced, and it's incredible, and I noticed this early throughout this country, the top businessmen, CEOs I've dealt with, they're all guys of men of God. Because they started out in their journeys through all the pressures and trials and tribulations, unless they're grounded in that rock, then they're not going to sustain.
And that's what we're doing, Pastor T. We're not trying to build business, right? We're not trying to build ministry, right? We are actually building business and building ministries that's going to last because it's built on solid principles. See that? So that's why integrity is so important, man. We're not trying to be in the game. We're going to dominate the game. We don't want to be great. We are great and going to stay great. See that? I would always teach it, man. It's one thing to get to the top of the mountain. It's another thing to stay there.
There, yeah.
Integrity to keep you there, man.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I would dare say that I find out too many people concentrate more on their image than their character. You know, and your image is, and I'm sure you know, your image is what you want or who you want people to think you are, and your character is who you really are when nobody's looking.
Wow, that's powerful, man. Let me show you how that works, right? Before the turn of the century, man, they had like the industrial age, man. There was a time, Pastor T, when they had companies, and companies had character. The CEOs, they built companies to take care of people. They took care of their employees, man. It was the old time companies, and they were designed. You couldn't find a babysitter. They had a babysitting center at the place, man. They thought about the families, right? And so those companies really had the ingredients that they say they had. See that? They were solid companies. Well, they went from being companies that have what they say they had to companies that look like they had what they say they had. Yeah. See that? And then they started trying to look more and not have more. And that's why we had the big crash. They all fell apart. They really didn't have the goods. See that? When they finally came down to it, they couldn't provide what they say they were supposed to provide because they didn't really have it. They just looked like they had it. And that's something. So now today, people are really looking for those that really have the goods now. See that? It's not about looking good. They're looking for those that are good. People are tired, man. They fed up with all the stuff, all the phoniness, right? And so, like Mr. Bishop said, we're not trying to be great. We are designed to be great and stay great, man, and really have the goods on the inside. And it's built on these godly principles that will pass the test of the times. See that? Because we got the goods.
And I know this is not, anything new to either of you. And once you reach the top, the only way you're going to stay there is to be humble.
Wow. Well, Mr. Bishop, you because I'm about to cry on that one. I say I'm not from Cleveland, I'm from New York, right? We get mushy in New York, man. We hit the spot, and so for me right there, that's my whole life, man. That Philippians 2, it says, "Let nothing be done out of strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves," right? And I lived my life like that, man. When I was in the military, the higher I went, right, the more I served. See that? And the greater I get in business, right, the more I serve. I mean, humility is my life, man. That's my foundation. And the Bible says, "Blessed are the meek, for they should inherit the earth." That's unique quality. In that same Philippians, it talks about the most humblest person ever to come to planet Earth, and that was Jesus. Read that same verse, and it said he humbled himself, right? And it said he became human. To paraphrase it, he didn't just humble himself and became human, but the Bible says he stayed human. He didn't have to. He could have called 10,000 angels name by name, but he went through the process, Marvin, of staying humble through the whole process. And he said he not just stayed humble, but he stayed humble unto the death, even the death of the cross. Isn't that something?
Himself unto death. Yeah, most definitely.
And it said because he was humble, though, it says God has highly exalted him and had given him a name above every name. See that something? So with that being said, man, I don't like preaching now, but man, that humility, guys, for any of you out there, right? Stay humble. Stay humble, man. That is a principle. It's a solid foundation to build on, right? The deeper you go, right, the higher you can build, man. And you build that in humility. Mr.
Wow.
Bishop, anything on that?
Well, yeah, let me share this with you, Dr. Brown, from my vantage point of just having the privilege and the pleasure of the last 40 years working from everywhere from the White House to the outhouse and dealing with highly successful people, but folks that's at the bottom of the bridge, right? One of the things I realize is this now, that Pastor Tony, you're right on point, because there's an illusion about this business and this God, it's just all the same piece. Because watch this. We teach now that if you work on your business, you can make a living. But if you work on yourself, you can make a fortune. Because if you work on yourself and you put these principles inside you that will serve you like the compass, God's principles will always be like a compass opposed to a map. See that image is like a map. It tells you a simulation of maybe what you should do when people are looking, what you should do when nobody's looking. But the principles tell you what to do when nobody's looking. It tell you what to do when you're in storms. It tell you what to do when you way up high. It also tell you what to do when you're down low. So working on self is the key. And when we say working on self, we're talking about putting inside of you these principles, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to sustain you is these principles. Because as you watch a lot of these actors and movie stars, it lets you know money isn't the total answer. Why are they going crazy, overdosing, in rehab, shooting themselves, and what have you? It's got to be something else. It's the square life. You need some money, right? You need money. You got to pay your bills. You want to take a trip every now and then. But there's more to it. The peace and the joy and the happiness and the health. We want all of it. Because guess what? That's our inheritance. See, it's not natural, really, for us to be walking around here broke, considering we're the highest creature God created. We're the only ones of all his creatures that have this thing called choice. Did you know when the fall comes in Cleveland, the geese got to head y'all guys' way? It's got to go south. They can't turn around and say, I'm going back to Cleveland. But a fish got to swim in water. Elephant got to do what elephant does. But human beings, we the only ones can say, you know what? I'm going to rise up. I'm not only going to change my life to be homeless, but I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. As a matter of fact, Dr. Brown, I consider myself, I don't even have a degree. I consider myself, I'm going to start me a business. And not only am I going to get into business, but I'm going to dominate it, because God gives me something he didn't give no other creature. He gave me this thing called choice.
Wow. I choose to be humble. God bless you, man.
I'm going to ask, I appreciate, everything that Dr. Bishop said. I mean,